So what this does allow me to do is make some more magic happen, right? So on top of this, from being here at the very beginning of Valorant, I was talking to EU orgs for a long time to get involved in teams. I was in Astralis's offices right here in Copenhagen because I'm here for Blast in Copenhagen, just sat in a hotel room at the moment. I went to Astralis offices. I told them about all the stuff in Valorant. I said why it's a positive and like how they should look to get into it. I have been pushing so hard to try and get more teams picked up because you guys in NA, right? All the big names came, they dropped money, come spend, and they want to get involved. You're very, very lucky, right? And EU was suffering. Then we had things like I did the Razer Contenders Cup, yeah? And they came in and did one where it was open format, but even teams like FPX and Summon went in there and anyone could play against it. So I'm right now, so if there's any sponsors, anyone want to come hit me up, I am trying to arrange something where we have at least a monthly or bi-weekly cup where we just have it open format. I just need a couple of €1,000 to be thrown at it, right? And we'll have it open for anyone to enter because we've got so much talent. When I built, have I got time to just go on this?
Cool.
Cool.
Your show, man. This is your segment. Yes, you do. Let's bring him in. I want to take a moment here to welcome to the show James Banks, who you may know as the general manager for Alliance, also Valorant commentator extraordinaire. James, great to have you with us, man.
What's up, James?
We've had a bit too much sugar this morning, but that's fine. Hopefully, hopefully you'll be able to help us here. Maybe, yeah, we'll go back in more academic direction now with your inclusion, man. Obviously, you were involved with the Red Bull Homegrounds tournament over the weekend, which was a ton of fun because Europe finally got another big Valorant tournament, man. You know, and you were right in there involved in the commentary. You were there with Mitch, man, of course. Pansy was also involved. It was a ton of fun. And we got to see again some of those European rosters back on show again, some of the top teams.
Yeah, do you know what? You've touched on a good point there. It's finally getting good event for EU because we seem to just be not able to get good events to run up from start to finish, right? So this was the real test for a lot of these teams coming off the back of the break and everything going into it. It was an interesting format, but I actually like the format in giving us a potential for more decent matches because you look at the two big matches, right? You look at the Summon FC versus Liquid, and you look at the Liquid versus G2 final. It went all 5 maps, and it showed us that, like, okay, the competition is still hot, and Liquid, they are at least dealing with some of their problems they were facing towards the end of the year.
I feel like the format, like, yes, there was potential for some blowouts, but I feel like the format, you know, the home maps being won, like, you kind of knew the series was going to be one-sided if both home maps were won by, you know, a particular team. Anyway, James, did you have any sort of expectations for, you know, huge expectations for any of these teams coming into the tournament? Like, when you look at the bracket as someone who's getting ready to cast this, what are the storylines you're already developing before the first shot is fired?
First thing for me, and me and Mitch have been very critical on NIP, is this going to be a NIP that just flops again, or are they going to show us something that we can get excited about and hope for? Because that NIP roster, they have been, and you guys probably talked about it to death as well, they have been so mismanaged or just misworked because they had potential and so many great players, but they could never hit the mark. We see Existence come in, and you're going to get excited about that if you know him from Counter-Strike, and everyone looks at the stats and they're like, who's this guy? It's the Aku Hoss name. I've asked him to try explain it. He said he's going to do it on an interview some point. Doesn't make any sense. Legend changed his name, but I'll let him have it. You know, why not? But he was a player that we expected to come in and be able to really change and mold this NIP. And then you look at what he brought. He was setting up his team from start to finish. He actually made us excited for NIP. And I said, I think I tweeted it, that this is the best NIP we have seen in Valorant because all the other ones were always missing something or not able to hit the mark. Okay, they didn't manage to do it massively well, right? But they show us signs that if you give them some more time, they've got individuals on there. Like the young 17-year-old Russian guy, JD, he is incredible. Like, he's playing a Sage, the Battle Sage, and then he's playing a Sova as well. But I think, like, you could just put him on any agent. This guy has got raw mechanical skills, and giving us someone like a leader like Existence, and this is what people, I guess, casual viewers may not see it as much, but the setting up that Existence does for his team on the breach was like second to none. He was making sure people were in the right spot.
Yeah, I do remember the matchup. I think it was versus Liquid because I watched it yesterday with a couple of people from Sliggy's chat too, and it was on Icebox. And the way that Existence just basically sets up the breach and like stuns on the left side, so they take the A site. The way that they push into the site too, they like try to they wall and they fight the site. Where, for example, in an A, you wall for the A plant and then you run away instead. NIP looked very good to just move forward and fight. But for me, it's you mentioned JD at this point here, Banks.
Yeah.
A 17-year-old player. Like, where does he come from? Does he come from CS, or like is this going to be like his first game being pro, kind of like the Asuna and the Dicey going into Bunch of Thieves?
So he's like one of those players that didn't do anything big in CS, right? He obviously played CS, but never had any success on a professional level. We started to learn about him literally because he got picked up by NIP, and that's it. Like, you start to ask the question about what's going on. And he just seems like one of these guys that is rawly adapted and someone you can mold, you know? Like, I can see him really just feeling out Valorant in every single way. And that's what got me excited, because he isn't a player who was just hunting for kills and getting super aggro. He was waiting. He was being patient. He was playing off his teammates. And you guys know, you don't get many 17-year-olds that do that, right? They come into this and they got a point to prove, and they're like, yeah, let's kill everything. Rah! And then it's like, wait a second, put a leash back on him, bring him back, bring him back.
Yeah.
But
And sorry, it was against
potential.
G2, the match that was
Yes,
mentioning about.
so G2 was the one that they was Icebox, and it was the only one they won, right? It's the only one they managed to get off them.
Yeah. I mean, and that was pretty. I mean, that was. I think it was NIP. No, NIP beat G2 on Split.
Oh, there was
right?
a 13-5 on Split, wasn't it? The dominant
that was
one.
Yes. That was Rhyme on the Raze, I feel like, just kind of dumpstering. But you know, I find this so interesting. Existence just plays Breach. Just Breach. Yeah. Like, in NA especially, we see like the Breach player also playing a bunch of Sova, playing a bunch of other utility characters like Sky and such like that. But I find it so fascinating. He is locked into that role, and there aren't too many teams that just have a. I mean, okay, maybe outside of Sentinels that really just have like someone who looks the best on Breach, maybe C9 to a degree.
Yeah.
How much of Existence's pedigree do you think translates in NIP's player right now? Can we see flashes of that brilliance, that tactical mind at work yet? Or will it take time for that to get fleshed out as the whole team applies, strategy?
I think the reason we got excited is because we start to see it. It's also the fact that the individuals are let loose. So to give you the breakdown of NIP, they basically lost their IGL in Fear-Off. Then they just placed Rhyme as an IGL who wasn't really a natural IGL. And he then dropped off in the fragging department. Now you see Existence come in. He has structure. And if you know him from the French scene, all he ever did was he was maybe almost sometimes too structured. But you expect him to now be on that Breach role because he was an Omen player before and he was real creative with his Omen. But you're never going to take Kriya off that Omen. We talked about in Europe, Kriya was the one kind of setting the pace for how Omen should play and looking at how you could kind of surprise, like smoking, then teleporting into the smoke, which is normal offensive, now. Yeah, and now we see it where, okay, he's just taking a step back. He will play any agent. He will be sacrificial. But even then, he's got so much good players backing him up. And for me, if you want to see this NIP lineup have success, it's just Rhyme and JD now being unleashed, able to do all this damage together because they were the two stars. And I think they were in the top 10 overall on stats, even though they got eliminated when they did, like that on its own is impressive because they didn't play as many games, didn't play as many rounds, okay, but they actually showed up on the big games. And that split game that was versus G2, I know from seeing the practice games of what G2 has been offering, they've been trying to pick into it. They've been trying to make it like a real big map for them. And people are like, oh, well, it's G2 having an off day. But I would highly doubt that at this point. I think that you give it some time. Yeah, this is a NIP magic moment coming back, but we're doing it in Valorant.
I love the NIP magic.
What have we? Okay, so let's now move on. We talked a bunch about NIP, and I think everyone's excited because the brand is so sort of famous. But what can you tell us about Guild? Because finally we get to see Safe and Yassine sort of in that roster together, and expectations I think are starting to get higher for Guild, but they fall short again pretty early on. James,
this was it, right? I think you summed it up perfectly. You get excited about this roster, but something is still missing. Like Safe, for example, he was supposed to be this one that's going to be the next like big solo player as well, like the individual that you can always rely on. We saw maybe a couple of glimpses of that. Yassine still does what he does, but I think it's tactically where Guild are a little bit flawed because I actually thought you're all Swedish players, including a Swedish coach. Like communication is going to be on point. This is going to look really good for them, but they still make some real basic mistakes here. Like, okay, this is a liquid that I would say is a really good-looking liquid. Scream now being on the jet the whole time. We've seen them kind of, I'd say, find what we expect them to find maybe a bit earlier, but Guild didn't even really put up a bigger fight than I expected. I wanted this to go to distance, and I feel left with that feeling that this is still not the final version of Guild, but then what is? Because who else is going to come in? Like Draken with his pedigree in Counter-Strike, I expect him to be fragging out a little bit more. I expect him to be taking more risks, but it's almost like they play too scared. Like And that's the team that shouldn't be playing too scared. They're also one of the teams that's got like the best back end, huge salaries alongside it as well.
Yes.
They should be in a position, right, where they're coming in super confident like they did at the beginning, and instead they're the one I see like running away from fights, and that can't be happening. You know, in Valorant as well, you have to stick the fight you're taking. It's not like Counter-Strike where you can kind of jiggle your way out of it at times. Normally, when you're committing to a spray down or a fight in Valorant, you're stuck in. You got to take that fight. So if you're scared, well, obviously you're going to lose. Confidence is more than huge in Valorant compared to Counter-Strike.
So I have a question for you, Banks, when it comes to Guild. First off, Banks, it's good to talk to you again, baby. I
know,
you.
Man.
All right. But funny story. When I first met Banks, I didn't know how big of a human he was. He's ridiculous, right? But
it's a fucking fridge.
No, it's ridiculous, right? He could break me in half like a stick.
I'm only gonna
where
hug
I'm from,
you.
we say they're built like a brick shithouse.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Right. So, all right, when it comes to Guild, and I'm happy you said it. You said that this team, essentially, they don't have the aggression that they need to just make the plays for themselves. And you've seen, he was a duelist. We saw him on Raze. I think it was Ascent, and then Icebox was definitely Jet. And stats don't mean everything, but sometimes they do. And my man's was slacking. And when you go against a team like Liquid, you need that type of aggression, confidence, that swagger, that cockiness to go against the likes of, a Scream or even a Link, right? And they didn't have that. Do you think Duelist is a problem on that Guild roster that they need to look at?
Why isn't Safe playing Duelist?
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what I was about to say. Like,
Wait,
Safe should be the one on a Duelist.
Yeah.
100%.
Safe's playing Sentinel. Teams have this annoying tendency of bringing a new player in and putting them in Killjoy Cypher prison for like 3 weeks before they allow. Look at fucking T1. Look at Brax now finally getting to play the Jet. I mean, it happens, bro. Like everyone's super excited about Safe, and then he's on Sentinel. I don't get this.
I think like everyone wants to be a duelist, right? In a way, like, they want to have that star player, and they understand that might get more attention or whatever. And you seem certainly capable of it. But like, if I'm looking at this team and say I was in charge of it, I would be saying, okay, let's look at who is the young star that's up and coming, even if he doesn't have like that shining star moment right now. Then you put all your eggs on him, right? You put him in a position to feel that comfortable and that confident, and then it's no problem with your scene being the secondary. Like you can just let that go, right? And he mechanically, you would say Yassine is more gifted, but Safe has a higher skill ceiling, as what I'd look at on an eye test from these guys. And the thing is, normally when you look at this lineup, you say, okay, they come close, but like it wasn't fair to them, right? They had a bad turn or something like that. It didn't look good, and that's my biggest worry. Like, I wasn't impressed. I wasn't blown away. I expected this to be the 5 mapper, and I would obviously look at what happens when it comes to VCT and how they do in these best of ones, because if they get upset there again, then I don't know. Lord help you. Like,
sure. I don't think the road is ending for that roster. I just think that the coach needs to just change around positions. That's ultimately it.
I mean, you could be a star player without.
Scream had a field day because he had no answer. You saw that ace he had? Like, come on,
I'm just saying, you can be a star player without playing a duelist. It's being discussed in chat. I think like Proto is a great example because he just like literally laid a steaming shit on FaZe or whoever he was playing
he
against.
Destroyed
guys like Steel and stuff are able to do that as well. So
yeah,
you don't have to, just because you have knives and dashes and it's not going to make you a star player.
Still pretty hot ace though. It was a hot ace following like a 4K from Artists. It was like on Icebox too. So it was
we thought that was it. We were covering that.
Sick.
We thought it was game over, and then all of a sudden it was like, what did Scream do? And by the way, I'm going to say this again because not enough people heard this. Is Scream right now is the best player individually in Valorant. I don't give a damn. I'm going to sit there and say it with my chest.
I would take that.
I'm going to sit there with my chest.
Wait, can we talk about Liquid and G2, bitch? Please.
We can in a second.
You can't be summoned. You can't be summoned here, Belly. Come on.
This is kind of juicy. There's a bit of something here as well because first of all, we get I love this. I love it when tournament organizers announce like they invite teams and they leave a spot open, like a special guest team. And then they fucking insert the team that they're sponsoring into the event that hasn't necessarily earned the right to be a stand amongst those top teams. And then you get fucking monkey business. Oh yes, 3 players that I'm familiar with from Overwatch. Obviously, 2 Frenchies and a Swedish bloke, and they go up against Summit FC, and the results are not pretty, Vansili.
Yeah, it didn't look too good at all. But I think at the same time, I wanted to bring that over to you, Banks. It's like looking at Monkey Business. Like for me, it's like who are these people? Same thing as Frenzy Go Kill. There were rumors that these guys could probably get picked up too. What's your take on how Monkey Business looked versus Summon FC? I think for Summon FC, for me, this was like an easy run for them for the quarterfinals. I think all the quarterfinals are pretty one-sided, but we finally see Summon FC do better versus Liquid later on. But first thoughts on Monkey Business.
So this Monkey Business, right? They're supposed to be going to OG if the reports are there, right? And it's obviously Red Bull OG. So cool, you got the spot, right? For whatever reason. AKM, I don't know him, Uber. You say, has he come from Overwatch?
Yeah.
Okay, so this,
Can I be honest with you? Like,
this idiot, this idiot comes out here and says that Scream is all aim, no brain, and then gets rolled on from the very start. Like, has an absolute terrible performance. I'm all up for big talk. I'm all up for big chat, but you at least got to back it up because you got made to look a fool.
I mean,
you know what's ironic about this? I take it.
I also think that's great. This?
Get in his head.
AKM did in Overwatch. That is what he did in Overwatch. He was all aim, no brain, bro. He sit down in the Korean just trying to let people down. Like, let's be honest. I spent a lot of time with AKM personally. Not a fucking intellectual. Let me just put that out there. That's not him. He's full of, he's full of machismo and bravado, but I would not say he's out there reading fucking Tolstoy in the background while the rest of his team's, screaming. So interesting that he makes that statement. Also, since the Overwatch League was inaugurated, AKM never had great success. Sorry, nor did Unco, nor did Tvig. All of these players were, I would say, failed prospects in the Overwatch League. Now, in Overwatch before that, they were fine. They were on top teams. Team Rogue was one of the best teams before the Overwatch League. But when the competition started to get real, none of those players, and you could argue it's because of misfortune in some cases, none of those players reached high heights. They are definitely hoping to try and revitalize their career in Valorant, but don't get it twisted. These guys were not superstars in the Overwatch League, not even close. Maybe Unco was the closest. He was a fantastic flex support player. Yeah. And Tvik had some moments, but Tvik was on an awful team with awful communication. They're all fucking Swedish, but somehow they couldn't, get a play going, to save their lives. He never achieved greatness. He was on a laughingstock team, the Florida Mayhem, that just got pounded until they filled the whole roster with Koreans, and now they're starting to.
So weren't Sinatra's.
No, I mean, I don't think that they were these players were necessarily all that coachable either. Like that, I never saw anything that really excited me from these players, with the exception of Unco, because he individually is incredibly mechanically skilled. But these three have played on a team before, and they had success on Team Rogue. It's a different game.
So they should even have synergy then. If you're telling me three of them played together, you should have some sort of synergy as well.
Yeah. Okay. You could argue that. It's the same as saying FaZe Clan should be good at using utility because Overwatch is all about abilities, but they fucking aren't. You know what I mean? Like FaZe Clan is like 4 players who want to be superstars. You know?
Man.
I mean, so I'm sorry. I also heard, by the way, that this Monkey Business roster were passed over by other tier 2 orgs before
tier 2
OG
orgs?
got in. Yes, yeah. So
what's OG
I need to see a lot
then?
more from them. I need to see a lot more from them right now. I think, Banks, you weren't impressed, and I don't know what we're supposed to see from this roster.
How did it show up on OG's lap, though, for
People
a potential pickup then?
It's one of these probably Chinese whisper things, right? Where they're like, he's good. He's good.
AKM. AKM was a Red Bull sponsored esports athlete in Overwatch. He was a Red Bull brand ambassador in Overwatch. That might have something to do with it. And he actually functioned really well in that role because he was like this sick mechanical player. He got put on an Overwatch roster and was on the bench half the time. And then when he played, it was fucking Dallas Fuel. So he just got pounded every time he got on stage. So his stock got tanked because of the way that he was managed in that roster. I think he had potential, but he never realized it.
I want to trash can a team on like a desk at a LAN one day with you, Mitch. Like just one day.
I'm gonna be that guy here again. Hold up, guys. Hold up, guys. Hold up.
That's it.
But at least
Vansili standing in the breach trying to hold the Smeagol's back from taking over his nice, flowery, very kind and polite analysis.
But yeah,
okay, you know what?
All that to say, I mean, you're seeing in the end, like, okay, Monkey Business, they live up to their name. It's a Monkey Business from how they played in that tournament. So we could talk about Summon FC to continue on to that. I think they probably finally had the biggest challenge going versus Team Liquid in that semifinals, going all 5 maps, and at the same
It was
time, you
incredible.
kind of want to ask if Summon FC was like a fluke for them going into first strike, kind of like Heretics, and then you see them in like in first and second into the finals. I think it was great to see this series versus Liquid versus Summon FC. It shows a lot of grit for Team Liquid as well.
Yeah.
As to maybe people have been doubting them, towards the end of 2020. But I think this was a great series that Liquid took over versus Summon. But your take actually here, Banks, on Summon FC, are they kind of like that fluky kind of thing? Do they look more structured? Or yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to come out here, right? When I saw them at first strike, I'm watching them closely, thinking, what is going on with these guys? Because I knew tactically they had protocols, they had setups, right? Boast was putting all this time in. They were all motivated. There were some players that were kind of like the oddballs thrown together, you know, where they weren't always like first picks or anything like that. Some of these guys have hardly any competitive experience. Like I was at a LAN in 2009 with Chak where he won a CS Source event, for example, in the UK. And then I hadn't heard from him even in Go, like hadn't seen anything big from him. He comes into this, he's looking good. But their problem for me was like aim and mechanically, they weren't beautiful, right? They would be able to win off their good setups and their good protocols and what Boaster was bringing to the table and the preparation. Here, they actually look better. Yeah. So here they look better. Like they've actually refined things to the point there they could challenge Scream, you know? I saw Doma able to hit some mad shots. Chak was like hitting these flicks that he definitely, by the way, isn't cheating. But you know, when you look at it, you just go, what? Like, what is this? Like, it's just unacceptable. And the fact they can bring that level now to a team like Liquid on an individual level, I feel like when it comes to VCT, they're going to be having a field day as well. Like, I would definitely say it's not a fluke.
So
James, I lost when I saw Doma 1v3 on split with the blast pack, like on the
mate,
I
was, oh my god, I was just
he come in there like a jackrabbit and just rip new assholes into every one of his opponents. I could not
like
believe
20
it.
health.
Yep.
So I have a question. Oh, Uber, were you not done? I'm sorry.
No, I'm done, bro. You go.
So this is a question, and you know, I'm gonna be completely honest. I haven't dived deep into Summon FC yet, right, Banks? But the 2 maps that they won, they had an interesting comp. And mostly I kept my eye on Mo a lot. Mo seems like their version of Sick. You see him on Viper, Reyna, Sova. But the 2 maps that they won, they didn't have a duelist. I mean, excuse me, they only had 1 duelist. Now, is that a type of comp that's going into their own specific meta that's helping them out in matches? Because, I mean, those look like some really good wins that they had on that. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, so when it comes to them, right, I look at them as a middle ground between your FPX and your Liquid. Because we know Sliggy, right, he wants to play around with the agent compositions and how that works for him and maybe throw a curveball out every now and again. And then FPX is really well drilled, right? They may stick with the pretty obvious agent compositions until Angel wants to throw a Viper in, which did shock the world at the first time. But then in general, like, he's more tactically facing, right? And he'll be the one to lead the charge. That's how I look at Summon, right? They're in the middle of these guys. So for them, I don't think like agent composition is a big problem unless they start overthinking it, you know? When people start to think too much, like if they take these losses against Liquid and how close it was in terms of maps, and they go, oh, maybe we should like now try and mix things up and throw, I don't know, we're going to start using Yoru on everything, for example, where he's definitely not viable on everything. And it's like, it's more how they're going to deal with the head game themselves. And people also got to remember, although they might be signed to someone, and we've heard all the rumors, they're still currently like, none of them are being paid to play, you know, they just come off that huge win. They're all just grinding. They're all super motivated. And when I go on my friends list, these guys are online all the time. They're always playing, like they're always putting the time in. So
got him flexing.
I see it as like, they just do a lot of server time. They do a lot of prep. And I just wish whoever's going to announce them, like, just hurry up and announce it now. If it's Fnatic, if it's XL, if it's Astralis, you know, I don't care. Just someone announce it. We need to give them a home, because I feel bad for them. You know, like you're thinking, I hope someone's paying them a salary already. You know, I hope someone's already giving them a salary and waiting for the big announcement, because I know their situation wasn't great before first strike. So I hope as hell they're getting paid a lot of money right now, because they deserve it.
Shouldn't it come now, man? It should come now that VCT is like literally around the fucking corner for Europe. It's a 2-day
thing. Boys, man.
Yeah. There's no way that this team gets split up. Like
no, it's not
this
happening.
roster gets picked up.
I tried to get some of them. I tried to get some of them openly. It's not a joke.
That's it. Banks, esports heartbreaker, just trying to iconoclastically just break up this Summon FC roster, man.
Let's go.
Hey, I'm throwing that cash around, man. It has to happen every now and again.
I mean, Veli, I'm gonna let you off the chain here, because it's time to talk about our next matchup. Let's talk about G2. Let's talk about Team Liquid, because that was obviously the highlight match of this event. It went all the way. It gave us everything we wanted. We got a lot of those single duelist compositions as well on Icebox. All right, we're seeing a lot of the sort of Sage and Viper play, which is fascinating. We can talk about that later. But I mean, that was so worth sitting down and watching. If you haven't seen the series, go see it. Zeke looks very good.
So good.
I've got to say.
Completely.
I'm sorry.
Completely.
Was that for me or Banks? I'm sorry. Like that
I didn't know
I
it was
just
you,
yelled
Velly, so I
out.
just left the room, you know, because I end up talking too much. So you can take it.
Oh no,
can-
you're good.
can
You're
back
good.
the
That's what you're
boy.
here for, Banks.
Right,
what you
right,
need, bro.
Banks. Listen, Banks. This is for you, okay? So when G2 made a team change, I was so worried about them because teams that don't know what a loss feels like, they take that shit hard. And yes, team changes
Yeah.
do happen to these empires. They brought in Zeke immediately. I saw Zeke shutting down Scream. I saw Zeke being the rifleman that G2 needs, and him on Reyna was just beautiful. What do you think about this G2 compared to the last iteration that we saw? Because they look extremely explosive, and I love the freedom that they allow Zeke to have.
Yeah, so this is what's great. I'm a big Reyna fan, yeah, and I know in a lot
Okay.
of comps it doesn't work, but seeing Zeke do that, he just needs this confidence to be boosted because you saw him tweet out after some of the initial games. He's like, "Oh, bad going by me, but we won anyway." And it's like you're gonna have some games where you play bad, and I know when you're playing the Reyna, like you have to achieve, right? You have to hit shots
Yes.
because if you're not, you're basically useless. You just got a couple of layers and you can't work any huge advantage. But when he was popping off, he was doing massive work, and you got to remember. This is his first ever big tournament. He's never
Crazy.
he's never made it to a final before like this, you know. This pressure, this viewership, the people talking to him. And another thing, I had to tweet out to confirm about the IGL thing because
Yeah.
he obviously was picked up in the idea of being an IGL, but like there was confusion. So I DM'd him. He's like, "Oh, I'm doing calling, but like it's still Mixwell's the captain." And then obviously all the Mixwell fans, because obviously there's so many of them, and they'll only ever take that Mixwell is the captain. That they won't deal with any logic in life. Everyone was losing their shit about it the whole time, and I'm like, oh god, why have I got to deal with this? So the idea is that they're still going to play this loose, free flow style that G2 have always known for. But if Zeke has a call or they have something they want to run, they're going to have it. They've got their defaults down. And then they're going to try and work the magic off their powerful numbers. And the thing is, they've got now 5 individuals who can always deliver. And like you were saying about Zeke, as an eye test on all this pressure on his shoulders, all these views, right? Stuff he's not used to at all. He's just been chilling, playing on an unsigned roster, having good success, right? Being able to achieve the basics, but going to a tier 1 organization like G2, all these tweets, all these mentions, that's a hell of a lot of pressure for a young guy. And like he delivered to a big standard. I love what we saw from him. And I think if we just grow his confidence, maybe their mental coach works with them or whatever, imagine what he can do. Like this G2 won't find the success of the opening G2 because I don't think anyone can. They were at the beginning of the game where like people were still finding their form. And I said about this G2, they can bleed, right? But that's going to be any team in this. We're not going to see them dominate and win every single tournament for sure because there's higher competition now, more players in the game. But this G2 is definitely a G2 that's top 2 in Europe minimum. And if they can keep this going, they can go back to that top performance for sure. But they can't expect it to be, oh, we win everything again, you know? They may want that. They may enjoy the memes and the social posts and stuff. But we are in a different stage to where Valorant is right now. And other teams have certainly caught up. But it's how far they can push this because the skill ceiling again on Zeke is so high. Like Mixwell went missing on that Ascent game for a while. And for some reason, I don't know what it is with Mixwell. He doesn't seem to do well on Ascent sometimes. Something just drops off for this guy. I don't know if it's just operator choice or like him mentally, he just doesn't like his position on the map. But like Zeke came into that. And okay, he hit 13 kills, but I told people on the desk the impact he had on that game, it was next level. Without that, I don't care if he had less kills. They would not have won that series.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's not about the frags going into that too. And just talking about Zeke, it's like, yes, he may have tweeted out that he had a bad performance on Reyna, but I was watching his game on Icebox. It's like his play style or the way that they tried to enable him. He wasn't the type of player, that was going to try to enter you really. Because there was a lot of times where G2 would be hitting towards the A site, but this man is like watching the flanks on A pushes and also flanking towards A at the same time. So he clears sites, he lurks, and when he sees that the site is clear, they go for the rotate back to A, and he even gets the kills on the rotation. He even gets double kills out of that one too. So I think when you're not watching these games and you're just looking through the scoreboard, it doesn't say much about this player. As a core, I think G2 looks very, very good. And actually, I just wanted to tie into what you're saying here, Banks. You say that now G2 is arguably like top 2 in Europe.
Yep.
I want to ask that question now, looking at the performance of Team Liquid then, because for me, Team Liquid looked very good actually throughout this whole tournament. They made it to the grand finals, but you're thinking at this point, if you're looking at the overarching ranking of EU, there's no FPX, there's no Heretics. How do they look versus G2, and how do you think they'll look versus FPX and? Sorry.
I was just going to add to that. When Liquid lost maps in that series against G2, they lost hard. Like, they get
Yeah,
three
they got
rounds
bullied.
blind,
13-5,
for Christ's
13
sake.
something.
hard.
Yeah.
Like they get
Yeah.
twerked on hard when they lose, man.
Yeah, it was like a 13-5, 13 something else, like a 13-7 on Bind and Ascent, or I was Bind and Split, sorry. But they still had some very good results where they won. When they won like overtime 13-11. So where there were still very close games versus G2. But overall, like I said, like how do you think they look now compared to last year, and how do you think they'll face versus like an FPX and a Heretics?
So I'm going to start with on this point on Liquid, right? That Soulcast had a tournament like no other. This is the best
Yes.
Soulcast we've seen.
Yep.
This kid was supposed to be being benched, right? So I DM'd him to get the truth of what this was because I hate the rumor stuff. I had my roster leaked. Fuck these journalists, I know they're just trying to do their job, but you're screwing me over on my call announcements and information finding. So I DM'd him.
Welcome to this side of the fence, my
I
guy.
know. It's not fun. It's
We
not
don't like
fun.
it.
Oh my god.
So I DM'd Soulcast, right? And I said, was the benching thing true or not? And he said there was a potential for the benching to be there. And then we decided against it when we came into the new year, and we went with what we had, right? I'm guessing that's maybe you didn't get the player you wanted, or you thought there was a way you can make it work. But whatever it did, that lit a fire under his ass. This kid came in and popped off. And what have we always looked at when you look at Scream? You saw Link sometimes pop up, Cryptic sometimes pop, but there was no consistency. Soulcast consistently was there with Scream. Scream, again, I'm going to say this, the best player in Valorant right now on an individual basis. You're just looking at one player. Now he's got someone like Soulcast to back him up. All you need is Cryptic's a Link to hit their shots occasionally and be there on time, and we're not going to have problems. So if I'm looking at the entire team, if you want me to give like a ranking or a rating, I would say Heretics first now, because obviously we haven't seen them. We don't know where they're going to be at. I'm going to keep them. I can't say no though, can I? They won main event. You can't be like, oh, we just disregard that because we're in a new year. They effectively are number one. Yeah. So then second, I'm going to put G2 in, and then third, I'll put FPX, and then fourth, I'll put Liquid, and fifth, I'll put Summon FC.
That's
and
fair.
the only reason I'm putting Summon FC down in fifth right now is because that game against Liquid, for me, they should have won. They should have had that early on in that series. It shouldn't have gone 5 maps. The fact they allowed Liquid to come back into it, and then you got someone like Scream just popping off, that shows the kind of troubles they can have with it. But I still think that Summon can easily come through and wreck any of them teams on any given day. But it's how, and again, I'm not in their comms, I don't know what they're talking about, but it's how they work when the chips are down, because there were so many of these games where it should have just been 100% Summon winning it, and Liquid just found their way.
Let me say this. Like when I take a look at Liquid against G2, I mean, it was obvious that the mismatch was kind of there as well, right? Soulcast, he did have the tournament of his life, right, in Valorant, because of the fact that I think he just wanted to pop off because of Richard Lewis calling him out on Twitter. My man said, "Listen, I got something to prove." Okay?
Listen, I mean, Richard wasn't wrong. That was soft as piss.
Oh, it was soft. It was soft as hell. Yes.
I am glad that Soulcast left all the nonsense last year in last year. Okay? Because I was not pleased with what I saw, especially as a commentator who tends to have opinions. I was fucking appalled at how that was dealt with.
Do you know what's worse about that, Mitch? Yeah. So Mitch is on the desk with Yinsu when that's going on. Yeah. So my Mitch, and obviously not you. And no one touched him. No one said anything to him, right?
Not.
So you ain't gonna say shit to him. Why are you gonna say it to her? It's like someone coming. It's like someone coming to me, right? And they hate me and Mitch Caston, but they only say it to Mitch because he's short, and they don't say it to me because I'll break their fucking face. You know,
bang them the fuck out, James.
This is what people need to be realistic. People need to wake up to the facts of, like, if you're gonna say something, you can't ignore what the other person's saying. You can't just target one person that you think is a weaker individual, right, or an easier target, because someone's going to call you out and you're going to get slapped about.
Yeah, even Nazgul from Liquid apologized on behalf of his org, and he said, "Listen, you're a player, and you don't like what I have to say. Bad fucking luck, my guy. You're on that side. You earn more money if you win. All right, I don't give a fuck what's on the scoreboard. My job is to be a pundit. If you don't like what I have to say, we can have a conversation about it. But you try and drag me through the mud, and I swear to God, I will never fucking let it go. And trust me, you won't come out on the right side of this, because you have to focus on playing. I get to focus on talking about you. I'm already doing that, my guy. First off, you don't want that kind of narrative. Yo, shut up, put your fucking head down and play the game.
Yo, first off, shout out to all the NA pros, because like me and other people, we pop off and we say some real shit. They don't complain at all. They don't complain. But Soulcast, you know what? I will say this: Soulcast had a fucking fantastic tournament. I remember his 1v2 on Haven where he clutched. One of them was Mixwell to get the defuse. He popped off. But the question is, Banks, I like Liquid. I love Scream, but still, Scream still almost had He almost had 200 kill series
I
during
know.
that event.
I know.
2 of them, Banks. And then, so the thing is, with level of play that's high, if Scream isn't doing that still, and this is still a
It's a
legitimate
problem.
argument, is SoCast and the rest of his team going to get those refracts, the trades that's needed, the rotations, and be consistently good? The fact that we're missing 2 major teams, I still, you know what? I don't want to take away this finals appearance away from Liquid, but there's still more that needs to be seen.
Oh, definitely. And I think what you're touching on there's 2 key parts to this, right? For me, I only wrote, and I'm not looking back at the stats, I'm just literally off memory, one bad game from Soulcast where he wasn't alongside Scream in the top part. So that, for me, shows consistency, at least across one event. Again, he has to do it coming into it. But also, Scream's way of playing Jet, more people need to pay attention to that. This guy will take a fight, if he doesn't land the first 2 shots with his insane headshot percentage, he was at 42% before going to the grand finals headshot percentage. What is that? That's insane. And then what he'll do, if he doesn't land the first 2 bullets, he just dashes out of there and then comes back into the fight.
Yep.
Like, people are too used to using it on the operator. Scream's way of using Jet is slowly going to become something that's like the norm or the best way to do things, because he is showing a new way of getting it done. And I actually think we're in a point where potentially we don't need an operator player on a team at all.
No, it makes sense.
You don't need
sense. No. You're starting to see that towards NA, especially on the attacker side too, where people just don't want to go for the operator on the attacker side.
Too much risk.
And even now, slowly but surely, you're seeing like LG is the perfect example right now in NA, where they're not running operators on the defender side, and they've beaten Sentinels in a best out of 5, and they're still continuing to prove their worth right now during the VCT. So yeah, you're definitely right. I think I agree with that, Banks. And with that, that ties a note, at least for me, the loop with the Red Bull home ground. So I just wanted to ask maybe some tangent questions for you as well, Banks, because the first one being the format, right? The format for Red Bull events look really cool. Finally, we don't see any best out of 1s. Unfortunately, right now into the VCTs of Europe on Thursday, it's still a BO1 in the first round. So what the fuck is going on out there?
Come on, bro.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to 2 things. First off, what the fuck is going on out there with the format? What's the best format going forward? And when you're looking at NA, you see so many of these like Cloud9 invitationals, FaZe invitationals, T1 invitationals. I didn't see any like G2. Well, maybe G2 they kind of did, but it was like kind of puggy, where it wasn't really that like more show matching than anything else. So are we missing events right now in EU that allows showcasing of these top tier teams to play against each other? And what do you currently have that also could maybe, help the tier 2 teams and tier 3 teams grow and get known?
Okay, so let's start with this thing. First of all, Riot don't like me because they want to split me and Mitch up so I don't get high for VCT. So what this does allow me to do is make some more magic happen, right? So on top of this, from being here at the very beginning of Valorant, I was talking to EU orgs for a long time to get involved in teams. I was in Astralis' offices right here in Copenhagen, because I'm here for Blast in Copenhagen, just sat in a hotel room at the moment. I went to Astralis' offices. I told them about all the stuff in Valorant. I said why it's a positive and like how they should look to get into it. I have been pushing so hard to try and get more teams picked up, because you guys in NA, right? All the big names came, they dropped money, come spend, and they want to get involved. You're very, very lucky, right? And EU was suffering. Then we had things like I did the Razer Contenders Cup, and they came in and did one where it was open format, but even teams like FPX and Summon went in there and anyone could play against it. So I'm right now, so if there's any sponsors, anyone want to come hit me up, I am trying to arrange something where we have at least a monthly or bi-weekly cup where we just have it open format. I just need a couple of €1,000 to be thrown at it, right? And we'll have it open for anyone to enter, because we've got so much talent. When I built, have I got time to just go on this?
Yes, you do.
Cool.
It's your show, man. It's your segment. You do.
Exactly.
When I built Alliance, right, I had money and I could have bought all named players or a whole team or whatever. And I actually took the process of saying, I'm going to open trial everyone. Now, it took a lot of time, but there's so many skilled players. You look at that JD guy who's now on NIP, for example, right? There's a player called Dark Zone as well, who's never played a pro game in his career, and he's got 3 Radiant accounts right now, and actually individually is very good. There is so much talent coming up. A lot of these guys have nothing to play for. Like, they're literally maybe just streaming, playing a bit with friends and stuff, and they're suffering. We're in a position in EU where I feel like we need to be able to showcase more of the talent, because it's not just all these ex-CS guys. Like, my roster has a couple of very well-known experienced players and a couple of players who don't have any experience on this level, because there are people that I've seen ability and skill within that you can work with. And if people wanted to, I can give a list of, I've trialed over 100 players. I can give you a list of players of all the positives and the pros and cons of it, because I believe there is so much more talent and depth within Europe than we're actually currently seeing. Because it's not just these people that come from other games. Yeah, we need some sort of structure added to it, because NA has so many different things, like Nerd Street Gamers, right? Vancilli, we work with them. They're doing amazing things. There's so many opportunities for people to play, and it's not just the big teams in there. I'm desperate in Europe, and I will help run it. I will do anything. I'll fucking commentate the game for free if we can just put something on.
Don't do that. That happens enough in NA. Don't do that.
James, it happens here. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah. No, but I mean, if it's a cup, right, and it's not like a big official thing, if it's helping the scene, I don't care right now, because we need this. Like, we need to show that there's so much more here and available than just what we've got at the moment. And I'm running out of ideas. I've been shouting and screaming about it long enough, and we just need something where these lower down teams have something to aim for. You know, these up and coming teams do. We need more of these cups. We've got this pro league thing, which has obviously had its drama. You guys maybe even covered it with the whole Bucky banning and stuff. But like, we need something that's a clear step up. And I know like challenges are supposed to be that, but again, if a team of 5 friends who are semi good at the game enter in, right, say they're all like Immortal 3 Radiant players, and they just get rolled on the best of 1 every single time, they're not really learning anything from that. They can review the game, they can look back at it a little bit and go, oh, we did this mistake. But what are they doing the rest of the weeks, the months and stuff like that? There's so much missing in Europe, and it's killing me, man. Because I just want to see that next level. I want to see more of these tier 3, tier 2 teams be able to rise up and actually have some kind of growth path. And I know it's really early, but it's just like, I see it
but
all,
it's booming,
and I don't know why it's not there.
Booming.
Yeah, we need it now when it's at its best, right? When most players are coming in, people are playing non-stop, streaming non-stop. So
it's
just hopeful.
Yeah, and I also think it's better to do it now. Sorry, Veli, just real quick to add on to that. I think it's better to do it now than to wait that 2 to 5 years where potentially this game is going to be franchised. And once it gets franchised, that's going to close the doors for those that were trying to compete and trying to get up there, right? So I think it's, exactly a small bye-bye to them.
I want to tack on to that.
Go ahead.
So the issue almost sounds like there's like a lack of tournament organizers that are willing to run stuff in Europe, right?
Yes.
There used to be tournament organizers willing to run stuff in Europe. I mean, look at what ESL did for League of Legends. Look at what MLG did for League of Legends.
What's going on with
that? And then Riot took all of their fucking esports in-house. So all of a sudden, now ESL, what are they doing? Like they did no fucking League of Legends after Riot took it in-house. They did go for LOL Cups on the weekend. I know because I fucking cast them for 2 years, mate. For like, I don't know, like some RP and some fucking skins. So now, what? Like, and I know Riot want this as well. What you want, Riot want as well. They want people for Valorant to run tournaments for them. They do RFPs. So all these orgs, not many people buy it because they got fucking burned in the past. Do you think Esports Engine is in a hurry to run Valorant events after MLG got cucked by Riot running League of Legends when they took it in-house and said, fuck you, you're not involved in running any of these tournaments anymore. It's all us, it's all franchise, it's all in-house. And you know, all of these companies, these esports tournament organizers, they say, oh, go fucking try, go run water tanks tournaments instead. You know what I mean? Fuck you. So sorry, you can't have it both ways. You can't be Riot and make it very, very hard for tournament organizers to exist because you take everything in-house and then turn around in Valorant and be like, oh, where'd those TOs go? We kind of need you guys now. You can't have your cake and eat it too, motherfuckers. Choose.
So that's great because I never come from the League of Legends bit, so I never knew that on how it works. But like maybe that makes sense why ESL never ran an Ignition Series event, for example, right?
Oh yeah.
In Europe, right? And this is no shade on the European Ignition Series people that ran it. Like we play on Blast, they ran the best ones by far. We had talent rotations, we had good production and stuff. But like everyone else was either hindered by budget or like a new tournament organizer to the point that it was me and Mitch and we were commentator, host, analyst, and interviewer. Like I remember days where we were just on broadcast for 10 hours with like a 30-minute break and like we had to do it. And they were like, well, if we pay your rates, we cannot hire other people. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean? Like, where's and they're like, oh, we're brand new. And I'm like,
don't worry.
No,
we are going to get into this. I'm going to rip into some ass later on the show. Just about that.
Banks, you want to hang around for that?
I can hang. I'm chilling.
Look, my guy Banks has fucking
is an
been
OG
there, bro.
too. Like,
yeah, he's been through the Valley of Shadow of Death. I've seen him.
I mean, that's the scary part, right? Because now that we're looking at challengers, I mean, let's be real. Like, you come from Overwatch, I come from Siege. Vancili's been around a lot of tier 2 Counter-Strike. You know, like we've all seen this along with Banks. And it's like, you know, when it comes to challengers, like the matchups that we saw, that was some grade A tier 1 shit when we were figuring out our top 8 from top 16, right? And so, like, imagine, you know, Esports Engine / MLG, imagine ESL, imagine Face It. No disrespect to Nerd Street. No disrespect to Nerd Street at all. But like for the Masters and stuff like that, it's kind of like what we spoke about last episode. We were on the conversation, the topic of maintaining like that level when it comes to these bigger events. And the question is like, are we going to get that now? Because we see what EU is having. Banks, you guys are spoiled in EU when it comes to events. We have the orgs, but you guys have the events. So now the main question is that going to come for us as well, especially after what Uber just shared with us?
Look, I mean, it's important not to conflate the roadmap for Valorant with the roadmap for LCS because it's not the same, right? Obviously, I think there's a very different approach to running an esports league and franchising it, and we're gonna get in the weeds in this a lot. We're gonna end up like doing the back and forth like we did the end of the last year and be here for 4 hours. So, I do look. Listen, I do want to put a button on this for now because there's some stuff I want to discuss before the break. First of all, Banks, thanks so much for coming on board, man. Tell us a bit more about what's up next for you, where we can find you, and what's going on in your world over the next couple months.
I'm just going to be chilling here in Copenhagen for a little bit, doing the blast stuff, but also going to look at my boys because it's on Thursday. We've got our first official game. All this hard work and everything they've been putting in for Alliance. It's exciting because so Mitch, my co-commentator, is also the analyst of the team. Me, him, and the in-game leader, Fearoff, we work in like a triangle of how we do this. So nothing happens within the team unless all three of us agree. Like it has to be all a decision from us three to make sure we're happy with what's going on. So I'm going to be coaching them through the first couple of games and the first day before we find them while we work and find a coach. And I'm just looking to see them do us proud. But the one thing, and I'll say this publicly, and I've stated it already many times, that this is a long-term project. It was nothing about like, oh, we need to hit this success mark. Because there's a lot of teams, especially in Europe, I'm not sure about NA, who were told by their organizations, like, if you don't make this, you're cut very early on. And they were given some shoddy, dodgy contracts and all this kind of thing. Where our contracts are legit, everything is fully done above board. We're working with different agencies. And for me, this is like a passion project where it's a new thing for me to learn as well. But I just want to see this do well. And that's the only reason I joined Alliance is because I was actually offered by other teams with a lot more money they were going to willing to pay me to be a GM and build a team. But with Alliance, we have everything that at least I think is good and a high enough standard in Europe here for the teams to do well, and just ask my players in a couple of months' time to see how they're feeling about it all, because this is something I want to bring in a different approach to how teams are put together from someone who's been in there. And we've all seen this, right? We've all seen the fuck ups and the negatives of it all. Management making decisions or CEOs making decisions who don't even know how to play the game properly, where I'm looking at as so for example, Lucka, who joined the team, and he'll have no problem me saying this, I did not want to trial him for the team. Fearoff and Mitch were like, trial him. I said, look, I've only ever seen him on Jet. Nip, he hadn't played on Jet. And he didn't even want to play Jet. He was just forced to play it because no one else was doing it, yada, yada. I trialed him. I was happy to eat my words. He played different agents. He played really well. And the thing we have as these five is like incredible synergy for a new team. But even if they bomb out and lose in the first game, I don't give a fuck. It's all about the learning process from here. We've got sick boot camp and facility coming up. And the main thing is that I believe in these five and these five believe in my vision. And we made a pretty sick team. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how it all goes.
I'm so.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to it, James. Thanks again so much for joining us, mate. Have a great week. Good luck with your first official match and all the best, mate.
Love you, James.
Let's go. Cheers, guys.
Love you, man. Take it easy, James.